I thought I had it all figured out. My life with Sarah seemed perfect as we planned our wedding, a beautiful spring ceremony that would mark the beginning of our forever. We had been together for 3 years and everything felt right. But somewhere along the line, cracks began to show. Looking back, I can see the signs were there. I just didn't want to believe them. At first, it was subtle. A change in her texting habits, how she suddenly became more secretive about her phone. She used to leave it lying around, but now it was glued to her side and it made me uneasy. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just caught up in work. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then there was the way she started dressing. The casual loungewear that I used to love to see her in was replaced by tight-fitting outfits, the kind that made it clear she was trying to impress someone. When I asked about it, she laughed it off, claiming she was just experimenting with her style. I wanted to trust her, but deep down, I felt a gnawing sense of dread. One evening, I returned home early from work, excited to surprise her. I figured we could have a nice dinner together, but as I walked into our apartment, I noticed it was unusually quiet. I called out for her, but there was no answer. I walked to our bedroom and was just about to knock on the door when I heard laughter coming from inside. My heart raced. It wasn't her giggle. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door and what I saw shattered my world. Sarah, sitting on the bed with another man, their faces lit up with joy as they watched something on her phone. My mind went blank and I felt an icy wave of nausea washing over me. It was as though time had stopped. When they noticed me standing there, their laughter faded into a deathly silence. Sarah looked at me, her eyes wide with shock, and the stranger's face morphed into a look of panic. I couldn't move. I was frozen in place, processing the betrayal. What the hell is going on? I managed to stammer out, my voice trembling with disbelief. Sarah jumped to her feet, trying to play it off. It's not what it looks like, I can explain. But I couldn't even look at her. I felt like I was going to be sick. The anger washed over me in waves. Not what it looks like you're cheating on me. Her face twisted into a defensive mask. You're overreacting, this is just a friend. We were just hanging out, I swear. I was furious, hurt, and completely blindsided. I never thought Sarah, the woman I loved, could betray me like this. Get out, I told the stranger, my voice low and venomous. He scrambled to dress and I could see the shame etched on his face. The moment he left, I turned on Sarah. You used our wedding fund to buy him a gift, didn't you? I accused, my heart racing in my chest. The shame and betrayal cut deep. I had been saving for our future, but there she was, throwing it away on some affair. She stood there, arms crossed, her chin raised defiantly. I didn't mean to hurt you. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. How could you do this? I felt the walls closing in around me as I tried to make sense of it all. Sarah launched into a spiel about how things had changed, how she felt neglected, and how this man made her feel alive again. Each word felt like a dagger, twisting deeper with every excuse she made. The emotional impact hit hard, and I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. I stood there, grappling with the reality of what had just happened. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who had betrayed my trust in the most profound way possible. In that moment, I realized I had to make some hard decisions about my future. What happened next would change everything, but I had to figure out what that meant for me, for my heart, and for the life I had envisioned with Sarah. The weeks that followed felt like a blur of emotion and confusion. I moved through life in a daze, juggling anger, betrayal, and the overwhelming sense of loss. Sarah was still around, and each day was a constant reminder of the life we had built together, now tarnished by her infidelity. I couldn't look at her without feeling sick. The trust was gone, and with it, the foundation of our relationship. It was like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I found myself replaying moments in my head, every laugh, every intimate conversation, every promise we made. They all felt tainted now, and I struggled to understand how she could do this to me. I had been nothing but supportive, always there for her through thick and thin. The thought of her with someone else gnawed at me, driving me further into a dark place. I started distancing myself from her emotionally, treating her more like a stranger than the woman I loved. During this time, I began to do some digging of my own. I needed to know the full story. Who was this man? What had they done together? One night while Sarah was in the shower, I picked up her phone from the coffee table. I hesitated, my heart racing. It felt wrong, but I needed answers. I typed in her passcode, an old birthday I knew, and was granted access. What I found made my blood run cold. The messages between Sarah and this guy, Jake, were explicit, filled with innuendos and plans to meet up. They talked about everything, the things they were going to do together, places they wanted to go. I felt my chest tighten as I read through the exchanges. They were planning vacations, discussing their dreams as if they were the couple that had it all. And here I was, left standing on the sidelines in the dark about her double life. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the timestamps. I was shocked to see how recent everything was, right up to the day I caught them together. A simple message expressing excitement about their next rendezvous hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to throw the phone against the wall, to scream and rage against this betrayal, but instead I just felt a deep sorrow settle in. When Sarah came out of the shower, hair wrapped in a towel, I couldn't let her know I'd been through her phone. I acted normal, like nothing had happened, but inside I was boiling. I felt like I had to take action. The next day, as I sat on the floor of our empty living room with boxes piled around me, I made a decision. I was done with the games. I would confront Sarah again, but this time it wouldn't be about her justifications. I needed her to feel the weight of what she had done, the destruction she had caused. When she came home, I was waiting for her, my heart pounding. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but full of intensity. "About what?" she replied, glancing nervously at the boxes. "About you and Jake." Her face paled, and I could see the realization hit her. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "Save it. I read the messages. I know everything." Her defensive posture shifted, and I could see the contempt in her eyes. "You went through my phone. How could you?" "Answer me," I shouted, the anger boiling over. "How could you use our wedding fund to buy him a gift? How could you betray me like this?" She started with the excuses again, but I wasn't having it. I stood my ground, refusing to let her manipulate the situation. "You don't get to play the victim here. You made your choices." Her eyes turned cold. "You're exaggerating. It was just a fling." "A fling? You think that makes it hurt any less?" I shot back, the pain evident in my voice. "You need to own up to what you've done. I thought we were building a future together. I was saving for a wedding, Sarah." The confrontation spiraled, with her trying to justify her actions, claiming she felt neglected, that I was always too busy. But every excuse felt like another stab in the back. I was furious, yet somewhere inside I was also heartbroken. Eventually, I realized I needed to step back and think clearly. This wasn't just about anger. It was about my life and what I wanted moving forward. I had to decide if this was a relationship worth salvaging or if it was time to cut my losses and start anew. The thought was terrifying, but deep down, I knew I deserved better than a love that came with betrayal. After the confrontation, I felt like I was in a fog. It was clear that Sarah didn't grasp the weight of her actions. I couldn't believe I was debating whether to stay or leave the relationship. I had always envisioned a future with her, and now that dream felt like shattered glass beneath my feet. I needed to make sense of everything. In the days that followed, I began taking stock of my life. I dug deeper into my feelings, trying to unravel the chaos swirling in my mind. I spent hours with friends, seeking their advice and support. Some encouraged me to fight for the relationship, to give Sarah another chance, while others urged me to cut ties entirely. I felt torn. Did I want to be the guy who worked through infidelity, or did I want to retain my dignity and move on? I also had to confront the reality of our finances. I had been saving for our wedding, and now I felt sick thinking about how Sarah had squandered that money. I calculated the loss and realized that I could either wallow in my misery or use this as an opportunity to start fresh. One night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the idea struck me. What if I used the money she wasted to fund my escape instead? What if I canceled everything and took the leap I had been too afraid to take? I had always wanted to travel and see the world, but with the wedding coming up, those dreams had been put on hold. I had a fleeting sense of excitement at the thought. It was like the fog was lifting, and I could see the path ahead of me more clearly. I could take the money I had set aside for the wedding and invest it in something for myself, an adventure, a fresh start. The next day, I made my decision. I called the wedding venue and canceled everything. They were understanding, albeit surprised. I felt a rush as I hung up the phone, as if I had just cast off a heavy burden. I didn't need to be tied to a wedding that symbolized nothing but heartbreak. As I walked home, I felt lighter in my step. I realized that I had power over my own life, and it was time to reclaim it. I was done being the victim of someone else's choices. I wanted to be in control of my destiny, and that meant embracing the uncertainty that lay ahead. When I got home, I found Sarah sitting on the couch looking forlorn. She looked up at me and I could see the desperation in her eyes. "You're really going through with it, aren't you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I canceled everything," I replied, my tone firm. "I'm moving on. I'm not wasting any more time trying to make this work." The silence stretched between us, an emotional chasm that felt insurmountable. "You're just going to throw it all away," she said, a mix of anger and sadness in her voice. "Was already thrown away the moment you chose him over us," I shot back. "This isn't about you anymore." Her demeanor shifted, and she tried to play the victim again, but I was done listening to her excuses. I needed her to understand that her actions had consequences, and I wasn't going to be the one left picking up the pieces. That night, I started packing my things. It felt surreal, but I was determined. I wanted to separate myself completely from the life we had built together. As I packed, I felt a mix of sadness and liberation. Each item I placed in a box was a symbol of closure, a way to sever ties with the past. I knew that this wasn't going to be easy. The emotional impact of the betrayal still weighed heavily on me, and I was sure it would take time to heal. But I also knew that I needed to focus on myself for once. I couldn't keep trying to fix something that was already broken. With each box I packed, the sense of resolve grew stronger within me. I needed to reclaim my independence, to build a life that I wanted, free from the shadow of betrayal. It was time to step into the unknown and embrace the journey ahead. What lay beyond was uncertain, but at least it was mine to explore. I wasn't just moving on. I was moving forward, and that felt exhilarating. The days that followed were a whirlwind of change. I immersed myself in packing, sorting through memories, and deciding what to take with me and what to leave behind. I felt a strange sense of empowerment as I filled box after box. I was actively taking control of my life, and it felt like a rebirth of sorts. Once I had everything packed and organized, I turned my attention to my next steps. I had decided I would use the wedding fund, which had been so tainted by Sarah's betrayal, to book a last-minute trip to Europe. I had always dreamed of backpacking through countries like Italy and France, and now felt like the perfect moment to reclaim my life. I wanted to step away from everything for a while and explore new horizons, far from the pain that had anchored me. With that in mind, I spent hours researching flights and hostels, crafting an itinerary that was as spontaneous as it was liberating. I knew this could be a pivotal moment in my life, a chance to redefine who I was, free from the weight of betrayal. When I finally booked my flight, I felt a rush of adrenaline. I had done something for me, a move that signaled I was done waiting for life to happen. This was the beginning of my new chapter. I might be scared, but I was ready to face whatever came next. As I prepared for my departure, I still had to deal with Sarah. She was persistent, trying to reach out to me. She would text, call, and even show up at friends' places to see if I was around. I had decided to cut off contact entirely, but it was challenging. I had shared so much of my life with her. The memories were still painfully vivid, but I knew I needed space to heal. One evening, I returned from a meeting with a friend to find Sarah sitting on the steps of our apartment building, waiting for me. My heart sank. I took a deep breath and walked past her, but she stood up and blocked my path. "Can we just talk?" she pleaded, her eyes filled with tears. I felt a surge of anger, but I also felt a pang of guilt. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to understand her side of the story. But I quickly reminded myself why I was doing this. I was reclaiming my life. "There's nothing left to talk about, Sarah," I said, my voice firm. "I'm sorry, I made a mistake," she cried, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought we were happy." I shook my head, feeling the weight of her words. You made your choices. You chose him over our future. I can't keep going in circles with you. I need to move on. She reached out, grabbing my arm, but I pulled away. You don't get to manipulate me anymore, I said, the anger boiling beneath the surface. This isn't about you feeling sorry for yourself. You have to own your actions. I could see the realization hitting her, the understanding that I was truly done with this relationship. She looked defeated, the fight leaving her as she stepped back. So, you're really going to leave? She asked in a small voice. Yes, I replied, my heart heavy. I need to find myself again. I can't do that while being dragged down by this. The vulnerability in her eyes pierced through me, but I steeled myself against it. I had to stick to my decision. I was tired of being the one to pick up the pieces, and I was done feeling guilty about wanting to be happy. The next day, I boarded my flight, feeling a wave of mixed emotion wash over me. Excitement, fear, hope. It was all there. As the plane took off, and I looked out at the shrinking landscape of my old life, I felt lighter. I was finally breaking free from the chains that had bound me to Sarah's betrayal. Arriving in Europe was exhilarating. The fresh air, bustling streets, and beautiful architecture filled me with a sense of wonder. I spent my days exploring, meeting new people, and embracing the thrill of spontaneity. I realized that for the first time in a long time, I was living for me. Every day brought new adventures, and with each passing moment, the pain of my past began to fade. I was learning to enjoy life again, to find joy in the small things. I discovered cafes tucked away in narrow streets, visited art galleries that showcased masterpieces, and even tried my hand at speaking the local language. As I traveled, I found myself reflecting on what I wanted moving forward. The betrayal from Sarah had been devastating, but it had also opened up a world of new possibilities. I was no longer defined by my past, and that realization was incredibly freeing. While I still had moments of sadness and reflection about my relationship with Sarah, I was beginning to see it for what it was, a chapter in my life that was now closed. I was determined to write the next one with resilience and hope, and that felt empowering. As I explored new cities and met new people, I realized that I was on a journey not just across the globe but within myself. This was my time to heal, to grow, and to rediscover who I was without Sarah's influence. I was ready to embrace the future, whatever it may hold. Traveling through Europe was everything I had hoped it would be and more. Each city felt like a fresh start, a blank canvas where I could paint my own narrative. I walked through the vibrant streets of Barcelona, marveled at the history of Rome, and soaked in the art and culture of Paris. With every new destination, I found pieces of myself that I had lost along the way, buried beneath the weight of betrayal. The people I met were warm and welcoming, their stories often filled with resilience and hope. I shared meals with locals, exchanged laughter with fellow travelers, and even engaged in deep conversations about love, loss, and the importance of moving forward. It was as if the world had opened its arms to me, encouraging me to embrace the unknown. One evening in Florence, as I stood in front of the stunning Duomo, I felt a wave of emotions wash over me. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the city, and I reflected on how far I had come, both physically and emotionally. I had left behind a painful chapter of my life, and now I was standing on the brink of new beginnings. That night, I found myself sitting at a small outdoor cafe, sipping a glass of Chianti and watching the world go by. It was in that moment that I realized I was happier than I had been in a long time. The burdens that had weighed me down were slowly lifting, replaced by a sense of freedom and possibility. I took a deep breath, allowing the rich aromas of Italian cuisine and the sounds of laughter to envelop me. But just as I was beginning to feel at peace, I received a message that sent my heart racing. It was from Sarah. "I need to talk," it read. My stomach dropped. It had been weeks since I had heard from her, and I thought I had put that part of my life behind me. Was she really reaching out again? I wrestled with the decision to respond. Part of me was tempted to ignore it completely, to let go of that chapter once and for all. But another part of me felt a pang of curiosity. What could she possibly want to say after everything? Eventually, I decided to reply. "What do you need to talk about?" Her response came quickly. I realized how much I messed up. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I want to apologize in person. The request hit me like a ton of bricks. I hadn't expected her to reach out like this, and I found myself torn between wanting closure and fearing the emotional turmoil it could bring. After a few hours of contemplation, I agreed to meet her, but only on my terms. I suggested a public place, a cafe in the town square where I could leave if the conversation became too overwhelming. When I arrived at the cafe the next day, my heart raced in anticipation. I hadn't seen Sarah since the day I caught her with Jake. Would she be remorseful? Would she try to manipulate me into feeling guilty again? As I sat at a table, I saw her approaching. She looked different, more vulnerable, as though the weight of her choices had begun to settle on her shoulders. We exchanged awkward pleasantries, sitting in silence for a moment before she spoke. "I'm really sorry," she began, her voice shaky. "I know I hurt you, and I've been reflecting on everything. I was selfish, and I didn't realize how much I was throwing away." I felt a mixture of anger and pity wash over me. "You knew what you were throwing away, Sarah. You made those choices." "I know," she replied, her eyes glistening with tears. "I thought I could find happiness elsewhere, but all I found was emptiness. I miss us. I miss you." Her words struck a chord, but I quickly reminded myself of the pain she had caused. "You can't just come back and expect everything to be okay," I said, my tone firm. "You broke my trust. It's going to take more than just an apology to fix that." "I understand," she said softly. "I don't expect everything to be fine right away. I just want a chance to show you I can be better. I want to make amends." I listened as she spoke, but the memories of her betrayal flooded back, and I felt the walls closing in again. Part of me wanted to believe her, to accept her apology and explore the possibility of reconciliation. But another part of me knew that healing takes time, a luxury I wasn't sure I could afford. "I appreciate that you're trying to own your mistakes," I said cautiously. "But I've spent weeks trying to rebuild my life after what happened. I need to know that I can trust you again. Right now, I don't know if that's possible." Tears streamed down her face, and for a moment I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, but I quickly reminded myself of the pain she had caused. "I think it's best if we take some time apart," I continued, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to focus on myself right now, not on us." She nodded, and I could see the acceptance in her eyes, even if it was painful for her. "I understand," she whispered. "I just hope that one day you can forgive me." As we parted, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I had gone into that conversation hoping for closure, but what I got was complicated. I had heard her apologies, and while they felt genuine, I also knew that forgiveness wasn't something I could simply give away. Walking away from the cafe, I felt liberated yet heavy. I had confronted my past, faced Sarah, and reaffirmed my commitment to myself. I was ready to move forward, but I needed to take this next step on my own terms. No distractions, no regrets. Being in Europe had helped me rediscover my spirit, and I was determined to continue that journey of self-discovery. I was learning to put myself first, and that felt like the greatest victory of all. With each day that passed, I felt the shadows of the past growing dimmer, replaced by the bright light of hope for my future. After my encounter with Sarah, I found myself reflecting on everything I had experienced during my time in Europe. I had come so far, not just as a traveler but as a person. I was finally beginning to understand what it meant to truly live for myself, without the weight of someone else's actions dragging me down. In the following days, I continued to explore the sights and sounds of the cities around me, but my mindset had shifted. I no longer felt like I was escaping my past. I was actively shaping my future. I immersed myself in different cultures, tried new foods, and even took up sketching during quiet moments in parks. Each day brought new adventures, and it felt like I was rediscovering parts of myself that had been lost in the chaos of my life with Sarah. One sunny afternoon in Amsterdam, I sat in a small cafe by the canal, sipping coffee and watching the boats glide by. The atmosphere was relaxed, and I felt a sense of peace that had been elusive for so long. I took out my journal and began writing down my thoughts. I reflected on the lessons I had learned, the strength I had found, and the importance of valuing myself. I realized that Sarah's betrayal had been a catalyst for change. It had forced me to confront my own needs and desires, to prioritize what truly mattered in my life. I had spent too long trying to please others, and now I was finally free to chase my own dreams. The idea of starting fresh didn't mean I had to forget or condone what had happened. It meant acknowledging the pain and using it as a stepping stone toward a brighter future. As I finished my coffee and closed my journal, I made a promise to myself. I would take the lessons from my past and apply them moving forward. I would be more discerning in my relationships, more aware of my own happiness, and more open to the possibilities that lay ahead. I knew that healing wouldn't happen overnight, but I felt equipped to face whatever challenges came my way. A few weeks later, after much exploration and soul-searching, it was time for me to head back home. I was excited to return, but I also felt a sense of trepidation. I had grown so much during my travels, and I hoped I could carry that growth with me. I was returning to a different version of myself, one that was ready to embrace life on my own terms. Upon arriving back home, the familiar sights greeted me, but everything felt different. I no longer saw my old life through the lens of heartbreak. Instead, I viewed it as a new opportunity. I focused on reconnecting with friends, diving back into work, and exploring new hobbies. As I settled back into my routine, I couldn't help but think of Sarah occasionally. I hoped she was also taking the time to reflect and grow. I genuinely wished her well, but knew that I had to prioritize my own healing. I blocked her number and social media, ensuring I had the space I needed to move forward without her lingering in my thoughts. With time, I became more active in my community. I joined a local art class and met people who shared similar interests. Gradually, I found myself enjoying life again, building connections with others who inspired and uplifted me. Each day was a reminder that I was capable of creating my own happiness. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that my experience with Sarah had shaped me into a stronger person. I had faced betrayal head-on and emerged from it with a sense of resilience and newfound clarity. I learned the importance of self-love and the necessity of honoring my own needs. As I look to the future, I am filled with hope and excitement. I understand that life is unpredictable and relationships may come and go. However, I am now equipped with the tools to navigate those challenges with grace and strength. I know my worth, and I refuse to settle for anything less than I deserve. In sharing my story, I hope to offer a message to anyone who may be facing similar challenges. You are not defined by the actions of others. You have the power to choose your path, to reclaim your happiness, and to create a life that truly reflects who you are. Embrace your journey, learn from your experiences, and take the leap into the unknown. You never know what beautiful possibilities await.